Hi, this is Valerie Malcolm. Actually, my name is Valerie Maxfield, aka Maxfield. And people sometimes say, well, what is your real name? How about just Valerie for now? That might be helpful. I am the creator and the founder of Standing in My Truth, a podcast or YouTube channel that I created in lockdown and for various other reasons why I someone asked me why did I call it standing in my truth. um I'm the type of person who tends to stand in my truth, but I wouldn't say something that's just off the cuff. It has to be from a visual experience that I've had, a personal experience, or a personal conversation. And I found that by speaking to anybody, friends, and people who've just in my working life, um, you find that having a conversation with them, and you say things like, "I'm going to stand in my truth and tell you how I feel," without lying. I'm going to stand in my truth and say, "You know what? This is how I actually feel," without feeling that I need to be validated by anybody. And once that lived with me, that always stayed with me. I'm going to stand in my truth. And then one day I thought, I'm going to do a podcast and just speak about myself, standing in my truth. I'm no different to anybody else. And that's how that was coined as a phrase. Um, it's funny because, we were speaking earlier and you kept saying, who am I? And again, standing in my truth allows me to say, well, really, who am I? Valerie, I'm a singer, and I've been singing for years. And my background would stem from Groove Armada. I am the ex lead singer of Groove Armada. And for those who probably don't know, just look it up because I'm not going to start singing and telling you. Um, where I live, my neighbours found out because I was on the telly all the time. And we used to have all the kids knocking the door going, "Oh my God, you're the girl on the advert." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sorry." At one point, it was like looking at my door, is anyone there? Sort of thing. Um, so yeah, I started out. Actually, I didn't even start with them. I started out singing, being one of the first UK hybrid band in like the underground scene of garage, which then transcended to be over the scene. And at that time, used to have like the So Solids and Sweet Like Chocolate, and I'll Bring You Flowers. It was that sort of era. And so we were the first band as a boy and girl band, and me being the girl singing with a group called The Click. And so that has still lived with me till today. It's still, the track is still played 20 years on. We still go out, we perform this iconic track. So yeah, I'm a musician, sing with Groove Armada, sing also with the freestylers with top hits from, it's no point with, I'm not going to point on the wall with any discs and stuff like that. But that's my background really as a singer, and writer of short stories and blogs. But never growing up, going to drama school, and I never forget my drama teacher saying, "You'd make a great presenter one day or a great actress." And I looked at her and I said, "No, sorry, I want to sing." And I left. I don't think she ever forgive me for that. I don't think. I still speak to her. And she said, "You could have gone on to do great things." And I said, "What makes you think I'm not doing great things now?" Um, but yeah, I think, it was that sort of thing where she felt that, I had that comedy timeline, but I just didn't see myself doing that. I think I wasn't confident enough to do that. But I knew that singing from a young age, my grandparent, God rest their soul, they both died within each other, a year of each other, 2.5 years ago. Um, they instilled a lot in me, and they had a lot of confidence in me, which I didn't think I had. And so that kept the drive. So when I had my good days or bad days, I could always hear my grandmother in my head saying, "You didn't come this far to fail. You didn't come this far to fail." And She allowed me to work in the community where she was an elder within the church. And so I got used to helping out from a very, very young age. And, always meeting all different people from walks of life. I got taken to Jamaica at the age of 9, 10. I was told I'm going on holiday, and my mother didn't come back to me but for 4 or 5 years later. Um, I know, I know. I was quite bitter about that for a while, to be fair, um, because I didn't understand it, because my brothers and sisters were left in England and I was the only one taken to Jamaica. I wasn't a problem child, but I think being the firstborn and my mother had kids literally one after the other, and that's the excuse I've told myself. My grandmother was the one who brought me up, and so it just transpired that everything that I learned, everything that's instilled, has actually come from my grandmother. It's just the way it is, and I thank her for it. From the grave, I thank her for it. Which brings me up to date. There's so much about me, and I don't know where it is, but just to give you the brief synopsis: born in England, got raised partly in Jamaica, came back to the UK, got good grades, started working in a law firm, and while in the law firm, I'm singing along in the days. Always sang in the choir in church and stuff like that. And the lawyer one day just said, "You're wasted." And I thought, "What do people keep telling me that? That, don't you think you should sing?" And again, the honest to God truth, I studied mechanical engineering. The only thing I ever wanted to do was actually be behind the camera and be a TV engineer. That was the dream. And my next door neighbor and I, when I was growing up, in England before being taken away, he and I, and his name was Paul Jones, we wanted to be in the police. Would you believe it? I know, right? And if I could find him, I know he's still around. Paul Jones and I, we were growing up together, and we used to live. I was at 48 Culverston and he was at number 36, and we used to play out together. And it was like we used to see all the cars going, Nino, Nino. I said, "Oh, I want to be a police." And I know my friends are going to be very shocked about that, because it's not a subject I talk about. But yeah, growing up, my mum knew that. My gran knew that. That was just one of the first things I wanted to be. I wanted to work in the police. I wanted to be a police. Then once I went to Jamaica and I studied mechanical engineering, I thought, okay, it looks like my police career is never going to happen. I want to be a TV engineer. Singing was never, ever one that I thought would be a career, ever. Presenting, never. But I like writing stories. I like telling a good story. I like writing blogs. But then as my life, uh, took its different channels and avenues coming back, um, I didn't get to follow that dream. So I've got copious amount of little short stories that I've written. I've just never published. I've written blogs because blogs are a lot easier. And again, I got thrown straight into a job. So everything I seem to have done, I got thrown into it. It's never like, that's what I'm going to do. It's, I think you'd be good at that. Do that. I go, oh, all right then, So singing came along. The first song I sang went international. And I literally that's the most craziest thing when I think about it now, because I don't talk about it. So the first song that I sang went straight to the top 10, in Top of the Pops. And I gave up my job and I toured literally on the back of that song for about the first 5 years on that one song. It changed my life. It changed my life. And I met the most awesome, from David Bowie. I mean, the people that I've met, it's just unreal. And the countries I've traveled to. My personal life, I'm very guarded. I'm not going to lie. I am very guarded about my personal life. And I was told so many times that I could have been, again, I hate people saying this to me, you could be so much bigger if you'd let people in. And what is it am I hiding? And I just said, I'm not hiding anything. I just don't feel the need to be in the newspaper. I don't feel that need to have my mother or my siblings or my daughter and just having their life, because I've got a child, and I just don't believe in having my life in the tabloids. And so I'm very careful of the company I keep. I have the same nucleus of friends from in college to now. Um, I'm just a weary type of person, but I receive a lot of people in. I do receive a lot of people in, and I treat them as I meet them, and not for any other reason. So yes, I guess that could have gone against me, but the way I see it, I still lived a good life. I still had a good career, and I'm still singing today, which I'm still grateful for. It may not be top 10 charts, but we are still wanted. We are still booked every year. And that's not just in the garage scene, that's also with the freestylers that I'm with. I've also got my own band called Maxfield, which we released an album just as we went into COVID. So that's been resurrected as we speak. Um, but why I'm trying to condense everything because there's just too much to tell you. But there came a point when I became really, 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 really ill. And this is why I started standing in my truth. I became ill where I got off the plane from Singapore. So I'd gone from Singapore, did a show in Singapore one night, stayed in Sydney for 2 nights, because I lived in Australia for a period of time, for about over a period of like 4 or 5 years on and off. I lived in Australia, coming back just to make sure my family was all right. And I met this wonderful guy that I was dating, who we're still best friends to this day. And coming home, and I said to him, I feel really, really tired. And he says, all the traveling you're doing, blah, blah, blah. And I said, God, I really do feel shattered. And say this was like the Sunday, I got off the plane like the Sunday morning, let's just say. And by the Monday afternoon, I was then rushed to Guy's and St. Thomas's Hospital, or St. Thomas's. And there's a lot more behind that. I was just not feeling well. And he realized that I was in pain. My mouth was metal and I'm being sick. And the only recollection, I just recall him taking me down the stairs, and he didn't wait for the ambulance, and he got me into this car. I remember getting into this car, and the last thing I remember before my eyes shut was my clothes being cut off. And I woke up 4 months later. And yeah, I woke up 4 months later. Wow. I woke up 4 months later where I'd already gone into a coma. So 2 months of that I was coma without being induced. And they had to then doubly induce me again, because I kind of woke up at that coma. But when I woke up at that coma, I was wide open. And by this time I'd swollen to that size. And so they induced me. So 4.5, 5 months I'd woken up out of an coma, in an induced coma in Guy's. My hair was gone. I lost most of the skin on my feet and my hands. And totally intensive, an ITU unit. But I didn't know this. I've woken up thinking it was still April, and the first thing I asked was, who won the football? Was it Arsenal? It was. I'm laughing because it's funny. It was Arsenal playing Liverpool, and I wanted to know who won the FA Cup. It had gone. It was way past. So that's how ill I was. And then I spent another 5 months having to learn to walk, talk, and just actually feel myself and come out. And it was while I was in there, I just remember a doctor coming and saying, you do know you're living in survival mode, and you're going to live in survival mode for a long period of time, because you've been here like 10 months and you're going to feel like you're institutionalized. And I went, oh, behave. And he said that it goes 1 in 10 of what you had has survived. for you. So I remember when I was walking out, they clapped, they actually applauded, because there was no way. You've given me 24 hours to live from the time I arrived, and I defied every single logic. It was on the BBC News, and I remember them giving me a video to say, we filmed you on City Hospital, because it was all over the, you know, the news that this girl had, and I was like what? So it's something that I don't speak about a lot, and I've just parked it over there. It's in a video, just sitting there, and I've never played it back. I've just got up, and within months I was back on the stage with a Zimmer frame. I had a Zimmer frame, and I was 6 stones, and I begged the band. I couldn't tell my mum. I begged the band, and my partner at the time, I said, please don't tell anyone, but I'm begging you, I'm okay. And they had to lift me. I was carried everywhere. And then to get on the stage, I had to be held by the stick, and I was singing. But it was something to prove to myself that I'd made it. So if my mum ever watches this back, she will now know what happened. But she can't kill Tim anymore, because Tim's and I are not dating. But there you go. But and that's when I said I need to. I want to, you know, write a book, and I'd like to become a presenter. It went over my head. I ended up going back to singing and doing all sorts, and traveling even more, and just having a really, just getting better, obviously, because it took another 8 months to even heal, and my stomach was still having mesh, and I'm still wide open, if that makes sense, to heal, to close my stomach. But I always said, it's time to stand in my truth. I'm not standing in my truth. I'm too busy talking to everybody else, but I'm not standing in my truth. What is it that I'm avoiding? So when COVID came along, where I'm no longer running around after anybody, my daughter or anyone, time stood still. And I became triggered. And the more triggered it was, I could hear this doctor saying, you will crash. You will crash. You will come out of survival mode, and anxiety will kick in, and panic. And that's exactly what happened 10.5 years later, because COVID made me realize that my life has now just stopped. You're either going to go downhill, or you're going to do something about it. So I had to realize all the things that I'd kept inside, address them as much as I can, bit by bit, cry the tears, and admit any wrongs that I had. And about 5, so this was like March, God, it's a year ago. So this is like March the 9th. And about June, that's when I thought, okay, I'm going to start buying. So I start buying the equipment. I then changed my house, because I didn't know how long we were going to be in lockdown. So I literally did out the bedroom, said, right, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to change and make this room into a podcast room, studio room. And I, bit by bit, I started buying the bits, learning the laptop, learning OBS, learning how to use everything, things that I knew about, because I can produce, as a singer, I can produce music. And I've had some really great teachers, from Tim Hardstaff to Lee Williams and other people I've worked with. And I then turned around and said, okay, these are all the stuff that I've had. I've had the greatest teachers, now use it. So there I am, learning all this stuff. There was hours and days I wasn't sleeping. I was like, oh my God. And started eating my whole body weight of food. And I had my highs and my lows, but in between, I found myself closer to God than anything else. I found myself thanking him for every day of just waking up. Even though I knew that I was spiritual, I found myself actually just falling on the floor and said, I surrender. I'm in so much pain, bodily and physically. And why do I feel like this? And I looked up to the universe, and I thought, just stand in your truth. That's the only words I could hear: surrender and stand in your truth. And once I was able to do all of that, and it kept getting more, and I started thinking, well, how do you do a podcast? Mm. And oh, before I go any further, I went for a stage of alcohol. I drank so much. So imagine, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do anything, no drugs, nothing. And I became really ill. Remember, I am fit as a fiddle. I got better, and Tim and I parted, and I went for a down spiral stage of my brother dying. And with him dying, I then went into a grief mode. Held the family, me and my sister held the family together. Then learning that my mother has cancer, still trying to hold us all together. And every time we think that she's going, 8 years on, she's still here with amyloidosis cancer, but bedridden. No, I mean, no form of life. There's just nothing. She's just bedridden, but she still finds a way to, and just she's just wasting away. But she finds a way with that spirit to ring us and have a joke on the phone. And she knows that she's gone from this beautiful, I mean, amazingly beautiful woman to a ravaged face, a ravaged body, and there's nothing. And I live with the guilt of that. I don't know why I'm guilty, but I feel guilty that I can't change it. I feel guilty that I can't care for her. My brother's the carer. I feel that I don't do enough, but she's proud of me, and that's enough. Um, and then I started drinking. I drank heavily, heavily. I mean, there was days I didn't even know where I was coming or going. And with the blessing of one of the best friends I could ever, ever ask for, Diane Alexander Henry. We used to model together. Oh yeah, I was a model as well. Sorry, right? I used to model back in the day, and she, such a beautiful person, inside and outside. And out of all my friends, she didn't mollycoddle me. She didn't let me get away with rubbish because I could talk my way out of the paper bag. She allowed me to fall from grace. She allowed me to, watch being, drunken stupor, and then said, now I'm here. What do you want to do? And one day I just said, I feel that if I don't stop, I'm going to be in an early grave. It took a really bad incident with an ex-partner. And I said, if I don't stop this, I'm going to be in an early grave. And 3.5 years on, I'm in sobriety. I didn't go to AA. I didn't go to anything. I didn't go. I admitted to my GP for the first time, who, imagine, they know that I've been in hospital all this time and they're treating me to keep me alive, and knowing that alcohol is not one of the things. So I lied for the first 2 years of all that drinking. And one day the doctor said, you're drinking alcohol. You're not supposed to drink alcohol. You've got pancreatitis, Valerie. Do you know what I mean? You don't have good insulin, Valerie. But at the time I couldn't cope with it. And once I did that, that was me, one, owning up to myself, two, standing in my truth, wondering why I was drinking. And I addressed every single one of those issues. Not perfect, and I'm still not out of it. But, and I didn't take any drugs or anything to stop, because I think you have to take lithium, and I had to watch out to make sure I didn't have seizures, because I drank from the time I woke up to the time I went to sleep. And then when I woke up, I drank again. My breakfast was always Jack Daniels and Coke. And I could drink that from the time I got up until whatever time I passed out. There would always be one waiting at the side of my bed. So when I got up, that was breakfast. Simple as that. Now, a lot of people don't know that, but I have to stand in my truth if I'm going to talk to someone about alcoholism. I have to stand in my truth if I'm going to say to someone, I understand that you drink, and hey, I can't tell you not to, but just be careful, because these are the signs of things that will ravage your body. So when I do have people on my show talking about it, at least I can identify, but I don't need to tell them my story. It's not necessary, but I can empathize with you. Um, so with Diane's help, when I needed to speak, she took the time to sit on the phone with me for hours. I'm talking about hours. And I mean, everything from my childhood, everything that I felt bitter, it literally just fell out. And when lockdown came, it was just still sitting in the back of my head, standing in my truth, standing in my truth. And I cried more tears. And while I was putting all the new lights together in there, and I said, can I do this? Can I do this? So people are going to ask me questions. And again, as I said, I'm really, really private. I think my problem is that I'm too proud. And so I think I fell from grace. I had to fall on my backside to stand up again, if that makes sense. So where I've been so guarded, I allowed myself to go onto social media to see my vulnerability. So where you think that I'm on this high, I'm just talking about people that have looked at me like that. I wanted them to know that I'm just as human as you are. I feel like you do. I have a family. I do care about other people. So please do not put me on any form of good or bad pedestal. We just all have different lives. That's all it is. I've been accused of pretending I'm white. Oh yeah. I've had the bits where, because I date white guys, oh, you don't date black men. So I would have parts of the black community not relating to me because they think that I think. And so all of those things made me do standing in my truth. So I wanted people to see why I do standing in my truth, to let them know that you shouldn't just look at someone and judge them. Stop looking at someone and saying, that's what she does, or that's who that person is. Let's forget, close your eyes and pretend you don't see that color, but listen to what the person is saying and see if you don't realize that you identify with them regardless of what gender they are and what color they are, because you'll be surprised how many of you stand in the same truth. And so I did my first podcast, and it was just normal with my phone, and I introduced it and saying, this is the place that you can come. It's a safe haven. It's a place where I try to bring voices to the table, and it grew from there. And then I said, oh, maybe I should start interviewing people. Now, how do I do that? And my first guest, if I remember rightly, last year was a beautiful woman called Bonnie Armstrong. And Bonnie has Cushing's disease, but she likes to kayak. And I was like, you've got cancer, sit down, go home, just take chemo. But we had the most amazing interview, and I got the bug. And I put it out, and we had really good reception to it. And people that didn't know that she was suffering, which was from her own community, then began to understand what she was going through. And I thought, oh, wow, okay. So I then start looking, reading about, even in the newspaper and just people around me. And I reached out to them and said, I didn't know you had that. Does anyone know? And and then they would say to me like, oh, I've had people turn their back on me, and I said, okay, I want to interview you, do you mind? And I've had people go, no. I said, okay, I won't do it. And then they'll come back and they said to me, no, thank you, Valerie. I've been so scared to tell my story, and I can't believe it. You've actually somehow, I don't know what I said. I just said, just come on. And I let people know that this is a safe space. Don't need to talk about anything that you don't want to share. It really, and that's why the show's called, on a Thursday, it's called It's All About You. When you come on, it's really, don't ask me questions about me. It's all about you. I will ask you whatever it is, and the platform is all yours. Now share. And I started with this just all about you, and I put all the flyers and spent, took the time to learn how to do flyers. But then I wanted it to have a theme. And so I found someone that was able to take the idea that I had. And so my flyers are all the same, but different colors for different nights. And I wanted to make sure that I still there's people out there in the music industry who, famous or not famous, I mean, to me, I think famous is a name we give to people because you see them on Channel 4 or Channel 5 or Love Island. I think we're all famous in our own rights. Nurses are famous. We just don't applaud them enough. Doctors are amazing. They're stars, you know. So that's what I class as being famous. You are fantastic. Dr. Naraldo, you're brilliant. You are famous. You saved me. So that's how I think. And there's a lot of us that think like that. But I understand the whole music industry, and there's people out there who are striving to get heard. There are people that want to let their creativity touch other people. One voice can save millions of heartache. It's sometimes great PR can do the same thing too. But music is a healer. And so I tried to bring on various different people on a fortnightly, onto the show that other people don't hear about them. To be honest, I think my show is all about the unknown. My show, it really is about all the unknowns. And because people said to me, but you know so many famous people. I said, don't you think they got enough publicity? They can go on the One Show. They can go on anything, BBC this. They can go anywhere. How about the unsung heroes? How about normal people that I know from today's walk of life? How about they come on Standing in My Truth? And that's how I sell it to everybody that I turn to. I've had knockbacks. I've had a few name brands who I have said to them, do you mind coming on? And I'm standing in my truth here. And they have agreed, but turned out that they wanted a bigger platform. But yet still, I've known you for years. We've worked together for years. But they felt that I booked them, and then and I said, so if I gave you money, you would have appeared. Or if I was bigger, you would have appeared. They said, oh, no, I'm just busy. And then they went off and started their own podcast show. Do you understand what I'm saying? So all I said was, I'm really glad that I've inspired you to do something that you never thought of doing. But because you see that you've got a bigger audience, you can do better. And they said, why are you saying that? I said, because I'm standing in my truth. I can only tell you as I see it. And I'm always going to live by that. I just said, look, there's a platform for everybody. And I think if you're doing it because you want numbers, then you're missing the point. You're missing the point. You're doing a disservice to the people that's coming onto your platform. You're doing it to gain numbers. Do it because these people are taking their life, their story, to a place that it could trigger them into mental health. It could trigger them into heartache. It could trigger them into alcohol. You don't know by telling someone's story where it takes them. And they said, yeah, I get it where you're coming from. I said, as long as you know there's no love lost, it's not a problem. But I just want you to be mindful of why people do podcast shows, or when people are talking about themselves, it's deep, especially if someone has tried to commit suicide. And I've had people on my show talk about it. And I wept. We just openly wept because I thought, my God, I never thought that of you. You come across so, yeah. And who knew it? You wanted to kill yourself. That's deep. And I thanked him for even wanting to come on a lowly little show by lowly little hovel of Standing in My Truth but I wanted other people to be aware of it. I wanted them to know that they weren't alone. And there is help out there. You just got to know where to find it and who to ask for it. And that's as much as I can say about my standing in my truth. And as I've gone along, someone has asked me to my Saturday shows was always on a midday. I'm going to wipe my face because of the lights. My show is always on a Saturday midday, and this guy from this radio station, I had two radio stations, kept asking me to play music. I said, I'm not a DJ. Give me a break. And they said, what do you mean? I said, no, but you can play music, Val. Okay. And hand on heart, to anyone that watches this, I am as nervous as a wreck. I quit so many times, and I've only done 3 shows. I literally announced on air last week, that's it, I'm done. I am not used to technical issues. I'm a perfectionist. How dare you put me in this position to fail? And the second week that I did the show, I bawled like a baby after I came off air. I bawled, and I went and bought bags of sweets and sat on the I was such a child. And I ate lots of sweets because I just felt like a failure. And it was my daughter. He turned around and said to me on Saturday, because I tell her everything. She's my best friend, bar my other friends. And I said, I've had enough. And she says, every show you do, Mum, all you do is pick holes in yourself. You're always complaining. And yeah, I tuned in. It was wicked. And we thought it was blind, that, and I said, but you have to say that because you're my daughter. She said, no, I don't. She goes, you know me. I'm going to tell you you're rubbish. And she said, I look up to you. And that hit so deep, that that hit so deep. And she said, I don't have any other siblings, you're my mum, and she said, I look up to you. I have never known you to quit, and I don't understand why everything you're saying to me now is of a quit nature. I don't get it. She says, she goes, if you start speaking like that, I don't know how much more respect I can have for you. My child told me this. And I put the phone down and I went, oh my God. I didn't realize that my vulnerability, the way that I was scared, was actually coming out to my family, and I just said to myself, I need to pull myself together. I need to give this a go. I need to I'm doing something, whatever it is I'm doing, I need to keep doing it. People are engaging, and stop feeling sorry for myself, and I'm not a failure. And I even did a podcast saying, when is the right time to quit? Do you know when to quit? Do you know when to say this is not the right thing for you to do? And I just had to look at myself and said, everyone makes mistakes, but you did this for a reason, and you just need to stand in your truth. So no matter what happens, here you are. And that brings me to, here I am. Hopefully I didn't bore anybody. And that's standing in my truth.